Basic appraisal procedures, page 186. Onto solid ground, such that the footer is wider at the bottom and wider than the structure it will support. Local building codes dictate how the footers must be built, their size and placement, based on the characteristics of the ground being built on, the type of foundation to be used, and the frost depth common in the area. Footers go below the freeze line, the deepest depth that the ground freezes in winter. Typical residential foundation types found in many areas of the country are concrete slabs, piers and beams, crawl spaces, and basements. Concrete slabs. A concrete slab is a foundation made from a layer of poured concrete reinforced with steel rods called rebar. This type of foundation lies directly on the ground, called a floating slab, or is constructed on a footer. The slab is then poured over a sand or gravel base with a vapor barrier. In some parts of the country, the concrete slab is common due to the underlying soil or preference. In other markets, the concrete slab may be thought of as inferior. Piers and beams, often seen as a primary method of housing construction along the waterfront for being able to elevate living areas above flood level. This type of foundation method can also be found in other construction applications. A pier and beam foundation has columns of concrete, wood, or steel. The piers resting on footers or another type of reinforced base with supports of wood or steel. The beams that span the columns to provide support for the floors, roof, etc. The lower beams that span the piers are called the floor joists. The floor and framing support for the walls and ceiling are nailed to the floor joists. Sometimes building codes will limit the height of the piers to discourage using this as a way to build a house onto the side of a hill. Crawl spaces. A crawl space is the unfinished space below the first floor of a house or other structure, but less than a full story in height. A crawl space can be a foundation in and of itself. In that case, the weight of the structure is actually borne on the foundation walls. The crawl space is accessed most times from an exterior scuttle so that the structure can be serviced from beneath. In other cases, a crawl space is the result of a pier and beam foundation with the piers sticking out of the ground less than a full story in height and supporting the weight of the structure. An example of this would be a manufactured dwelling. Typically, these are placed atop concrete block piers. A non-weight-bearing skirt of various types of materials is then placed around the perimeter of the manufactured dwelling structure. Basements. A basement is part of a house or building that is partially or entirely below grade, ground level, and used to support the weight of the structure. Basements are typically at least, page 187, 1 full story in height. A basement is formed as a result of space that is first excavated before a house or building is erected. The walls of the basement can be from many different materials. The most common is either poured concrete walls or concrete block. However, it is not unusual to find brick and stone, especially in older dwellings. Though not common, even treated timbers are found in some locations. In any case, the basement walls sit on concrete footers, and the basement walls serve as the foundation for the house. The floor joists sit on the ledges or sills of the basement walls around the perimeter of the house. The floor joists are usually supported in the middle of the house and sit on some type of support column or beam that rests on the support column. Support columns may be concrete, wood, metal, or block piers. These piers in turn sit on a slab or footer. Important points. The fourth step in the construction of a new house is the foundation. Typical foundation types include concrete slabs, piers and beams, crawl spaces, and basements. Below grade is synonymous with ground level. Framing. The framing is the basic load-bearing skeleton of the house to which the interior walls, exterior walls, and roof system are attached. Framing also includes the solid support structure surrounding window and door openings. When interior framing is complete, one can actually walk around the floor plan of the home, experiencing the layout. Other than wood, other types of framing include concrete, block, metal, and poured wall. Metal studs that in the past were typically used for commercial buildings are also becoming popular with residential construction. The three basic frame construction types are platform, post and beam, and balloon frame. Platform framing is a type of framing by which the house or building is constructed one story at a time, with each story serving as a platform for the next. Studs are cut to the height of each story, with horizontal flooring and support across the top of the studs. The studs for the next story are then cut and attached to the flooring. This is a very common type of framing. Post and beam. Post and beam framing is a type of framing with the floor for higher stories and the roof supported by beams that sit on top of posts and the outside wall perimeter. This is similar to the way a post and beam foundation is constructed. With post supports, not as many interior walls are needed, allowing for larger and more open rooms. Posts, beams, and frame members are heavier than with other types of framing, and in the case of wood, it may often be left exposed for decorative purposes. Balloon. Balloon framing is a type of framing with long studs going up the entire length of the house, from the foundation to the roof. Horizontal studs called ledger boards are nailed to these tall studs to provide support for the floor and roof joists. Although, important points. The fifth step in the construction of a new home is framing. Typical frame construction types include platform, post and beam, and balloon. Once framing is complete, one can walk around the floor plan of the home, experiencing the layout.